Hi everyone, Abby is video. Today we're going to be doing a tier list for Overwatch 2 Season 7. And honestly, we've not moved on from the poke meta. Blizzard refused to address it. And unfortunately, things are pretty much the same. Now, I've kind of done a little bit of the tier list over here, realized I wasn't recording, lost my mind. Here we are now. So I'll just get straight into it. I want to try and keep this a little bit short. We're going to do the supports first, then we'll do the tanks, and then we're going to do damage dealers, okay? Also, I've been playing the season pretty much the entire day and one half of last night. So I got a handful of hours, and honestly, it doesn't seem like the game change has changed that much. So to start us off, Iliari doesn't have an icon, so just pretend Iliari is an S tier, okay? Iliari, Baptiste are the king and queen of the support role right now. Right next to them is 𝐒𝐿𝐄. Now, why is that the case, right? Basically, what Zarya and Orisa are enabling right now is a poke comp where teams just kind of want to bundle up, play this like double shield goats play style of just staying close to each other, poking to see who wastes resources first, and then you bombard the other side in hopes that you can, eliminate them and things like that. Now, BAP and Iliari are really, really strong simply because they are really good at everything. They have various forms of a quote unquote HP bar. For example, if you start dueling a Baptiste, you first have to reduce his first set of health, then of course he's going to shift, you have to reduce that, then the immortality field comes up, and then by this point, if he didn't get the support passive to go off, you have to get through another set of his HP bar. So it can feel very incredibly frustrating to duel Baptiste sometimes. And honestly, Bap is the king of 1v1. I've been playing him this season. He's just too strong. Like, again, none of the meta picks were like touched at all. Right next to him is Iliari, and again, same thing. Iliari brings a third body onto the field as a support, and it just allows that thing to do her job of supporting her team, while Iliari can go off and just apply so much pressure. And honestly, Iliari is just a better poke DPS than the actual poke hit scan DPSs that we do have, which is incredibly depressing. And yeah, she's an S tier with BAP. Again, if anybody wants more in-depth explanations, ask below. But the meta hasn't changed that much. So if you're familiar with the meta, then unfortunately not much differences, although I will give some hot takes here and there. Right after, so we got Iliari, BAP, and 𝐒𝐿𝐄. Now, 𝐒𝐿𝐄, I was going to eventually put her in A tier, but honestly, 𝐒𝐿𝐄's flexibility, she's pretty much viable in any team comp. She's pretty much viable with any hero. She's really good at countering negative effects, being the only support with the cleanse. That invul for that 1 second can come in handy for a lot of situations. Her poke is okay. Like, usually you do want to run BAP, Iliari, but if the composition calls for it, then you can definitely play 𝐒𝐿𝐄. There's nothing wrong with playing 𝐒𝐿𝐄. But definitely BAP and Iliari have a little bit few more advantages over her. Kitsune Rush is still a great ultimate, and overall, 𝐒𝐿𝐄 is a solid hero just in general, right? So really good. She's just really good. So BAP, Iliari, 𝐒𝐿𝐄, top of S tier, right? Honestly, none of the supports are actually bad. Each of them excel in their own ways, but I do kind of want to create a bit of, a little bit of a disparity, a little bit of like a variety here and there. Now, originally I was thinking about putting Ana in A tier, but honestly I've kind of reconsidered it, and I'm going to put Ana in S tier. Ana is still really, really strong in this poke meta. She's strong in dive and in certain rush brawl metas. She can really be good. So again, flexibility, she still has decent damage. Her healing is still incredibly high. Nade is nade. Sleep is really good. She didn't really lose anything this patch, nor did anything get enabled that could pressure her to feel like, okay, her spot in the game could be finally going away. So BAP, Ana, Iliari, 𝐒𝐿𝐄, they're very, very strong supports, and you can never go wrong playing them. In fact, I would actually say Ana is really strong, really, really strong. She's more strong from the perspective of supporting your team than the DPS side of things. That's kind of where BAP and Iliari come in. Ana and 𝐒𝐿𝐄 are this little thing where they're really, really good at just kind of enabling your team to go nuts and do whatever they want, although they do have some really good poke damage in their hands as well. Now, in the A tier, we got Lifeweaver. Honestly, I've been thinking about putting Lifeweaver in S tier, but he can kind of fall apart sometimes in the mid fight simply because, again, his lack of like he lacks the ability to duel properly, or even poke. So you're just kind of stuck heal botting on him. You have to be really good at just running away. And honestly, now that I'm kind of seeing, I feel like players have learned how to play BAP, and he's really not that bad. I would actually put him at the top of A tier. His Tree of Life buff was insane, and I called it. And people were like, no, the Tree of Life is not going to do anything, except that it did, because it turns a lot of people into mini tanks. Like the squishies, the supports and DPS, they become mini tanks. Your tank gets a bigger HP bar. I would say 99% of the time, if you use a Tree of Life ult, you and your team has common sense, you are going to win that team fight just because there's too much healing coming through. Now the tree is healing. Imagine you have 𝐒𝐿iari with you. Her pylon is healing. Her right click is healing. You're healing with your left clicks. He's very strong. So while he might not have some damage capabilities, he just covers up for all of that with the intense amount of healing. And pull is so strong. Like, there are some really good life weaver players out there that really understand how to use pull to deny enemy tank some free kills or engagements, and it's honestly pretty solid. So life weaver at the top of A tier. Now Brigitte is a very awkward one. She has a very awkward spot. She's not really good against poke comps. Her survivability is brought into question a lot. She can get bursted down very easily. Her shield is still paper thin. So the reason I put her in A tier is in the situation where you do play her, let's say that they're playing dive or you are playing dive, playing Brig with that is not a bad idea. And in some strange situations, again, let's imply that they're not playing a poke based comp and they're playing something else. She can work. If you're smart and you know how to play Brig, she can still work. Rally is still a decent ult, although I would argue Tree of Life is a much better rally now. And yeah, overall she's pretty solid, but you have to play her with and against the right comps. Otherwise, she falls apart really quickly. Like, for example, like obviously don't play Brigitte into Pharah Mercy. You are actually a free kill for the Pharah at that point. So just, some food for thought, or Ramatra or Reinhardt. I mean, you can play her into Ram and Rein, but just watch her positioning. Again, you can play these characters anywhere, but there is a feeling of, okay, usually the matchup of, for example, Brig and Pharah is like 99% Pharah favored. Okay, like you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You're going to feel really pressured. Now moving on, again, so I would say even the weakest supports are just B tier. None of the supports are bad. They just become situational if they're not S tier. So we come down to Moira, and Moira, I actually, you know what, I'm gonna put Moira in A tier. She's not necessarily bad. She just doesn't bring any utility to the table. Like, anything that she can do, all these supports that are above her, they already do it better than her. And yeah, like, her healing is just so slow. I wonder if at some point they may buff her and take power away from some other parts of her kit, but I don't think it's necessary. She's a pretty good entry level support. And yeah, like, she's just either heal botting or damaging people. There's really nothing else that she can provide. Coalescence is a pretty decent ult, although because healing is high, Coalescence can just feel pathetic sometimes. But again, she's a decent A tier pick, although again, I'm on this weird like jump around of B and A with Moira. Now coming down to the three supports, these three have a special place in my heart because they don't enable a lot of degeneracy. Although an argument can be made for two of these in here with some abilities, but I digress. Mercy, I would say, now the B tier is going to be not bad, not good, but dependent on a specialist playing this character. If you play Mercy, if you play Lucio, if you play Zen, you basically have to be a specialist on these characters where you know them in and out to the point that you can make them work. Although Zen is just completely negated by 𝐒𝐿iari, BAP, Kiriko, Ana. Simply, like, right now there's no need for Discord because they made Discord really wonky. And if you play Zen, you're a free kill for the enemy 𝐒𝐿iari. I can't believe I'm saying this, but now Zen has to worry about the supports more than he does about enemy DPS. And if you want to play Zen's poke style, 𝐒𝐿iari is just the better pick. More healing, more consistent damage, and sure, you trade out the defensive support ult, but 𝐒𝐿iari's aggressive support ult is just amazing. You can take a teamfight loss, come back, mark 5 people, blow them all up, and win. So Zen, if you're playing him, you have to be really good at him. You have to do 2-3 times as much as the other supports above him, and in the S tier, and then it can work. Zen, again, just depends on the player. If your team can play around you well, Zen can either be S tier or just B tier. There's like no in between, right? Because from what I'm seeing, at the moment we're running around low GM and high Masters games. Like, Zen is either a free kill or he has a little bit of control in the lobby until my 𝐒𝐿iari decides that he's going to face the sunrise and be enlightened yet again, but in a different way, and get turned into rust instead of pure metal. So it is a very interesting experience. Lucio and Mercy, man, unfortunately, like, I'm going to talk about Lucio first and last we'll talk about Mercy. Lucio's problem right now is it doesn't matter what your speed brings and what it's supposed to enable, because everything else that you are running up against is going to slow down. Like, okay, you rush in Reinhardt, Ramatra, or Jungkook, and you want to use them to burst the target down. Yeah, here's the wake-up call, buddy. Things are not dying that quick anymore because healing is out of control. And because of that, Lucio has this like passive nerf on him where he's just in a really awkward spot. The Reddit Lucio playstyle gets you punished more often than not, unless you're in low elo. And then in the higher tiers, it's just like, okay, maybe on some maps you can make it work if pretty much you and the tank work in perfect synergy. But again, it's like, why put yourself into so much stress? His damage is mediocre, his healing is mediocre, he's mainly picked for his speed boost. And if you can't do that, then you just if it's not working, then you're just better off playing any of the supports above him in terms of enabling your team and supporting your team. Sound Barrier is still a pretty decent ult, but it's just not like the rest of his kit is not enough to, okay, he should be a go-to pick. And that brings us to Mercy. Now, I put them in B tier because these are balanced, right? These three should be left alone for a while until we deal with everybody else, right, in the support role. So we come down to Mercy, and again, Mercy's in that same Lucio situation where a Mercy specialist can really make her work, and that Mercy really has to have a good balance between healing and damage boost. I would actually say in the current poke meta, it is not that bad to heal bot on Mercy because just the meta itself is demanding either we all stay alive or we don't. And the damage boost is still good. Like, for example, if you have a Pharah, if you have an Ashe, if you have a Genji, and you want to damage boost them and enable them, go in with them, that's not necessarily a bad idea. It can also work really well with Echo. But again, just she's so one-dimensional that everything she brings, even her ult is so, I'm not going to lie, it's just meh. Like, it's so meh. Like, you could have like look at all the characters above her, think about all their ults, think about Mercy's ult. It's just comparatively, it's just meh. It's like a budget transcendence. You always heal bot with it. So in that regard, Mercy is not bad. Just latch on to a good DPS player and let him carry. Turn him into a raid boss, and that's the thing with Mercy. So B is for balanced, A is for like A is like good, but like a little bit situational. And for S, it's like you can play them anywhere. Again, Iliari's icon is missing, so just pretend Iliari is here, okay? So that's it for the supports. None of the supports are necessarily bad, but for, again, the B tier supports, you do, like, just remember you have to do 2-3 times as much as any of the heroes in A and S tier, okay? Like, it is going to be very stressful for Mercy, Lucio, and Zen in the current game state. All right, now that we got this out of the way, we're going to be doing tank next, and while I clean up the charts, we're going to start off with the S tier tanks. And number one, I hate saying this, but I'm sorry, Orisa has not moved an inch. She is still really strong, and when we did have an awkward situation where Orisa was in and out of the game's meta in Season 1, near the end of Season 1 and early Season 2, the biggest suggestion that people understood for Orisa was that her window to punish her is very, very tiny. It's barely existent, and in the time that you can punish her, healing is so high that she just never dies. Like, okay, she rotates her cooldowns. There's a window of 2-3 seconds where you can punish her. But it doesn't matter because the two high healing supports just keep that character up all the time. And then by the time the healing resources run out for 2-3 seconds, Orisa's cooldowns have come back. So she did get some substantial nerfs in mid-season, last season, and this season. But surprise, surprise, it doesn't actually address the problem. She's still an S tier tank. She's really, really good. And right now for the tank, all you're being asked to do is stay alive. Stay alive, keep your DPS alive with you, and hope that your supports can out DPS the other supports. And I'm joking, like, of course you can make plays with Orisa and the DPS on your team. But what I've been noticing, you just have to stay alive. Do your best to stay alive. That brings us to Doomfist. Doomfist is the definition of a specialist pick. Again, so the B tier for tank, we're going to use it for specialist. And Doomfist is pretty much that, because in the right hands, in a Doomfist that understands how to move and control the map, Doomfist is S tier. However, in the hands of a newbie Doomfist that is just learning him and for some strange reason practicing Doom in ranked, they're D tier. Like, there's no in between. It's either you're up here or you're down here, right? So he's a specialist pick. I will say he's good. Let's just assume that if all factors go well for the Doom, he's in a pretty good spot. Now, Sombra is lingering, Mei is back, and all this type of stuff. But again, if you know what you're doing with Doom, you should be able to outpace them. And of course, if it's too much, like Orisa, Mei, Sombra, etc., etc., then you may have to swap off and go Orisa yourself. Then there's not much you can do about easy abilities rendering tank useless in the fraction of a second. Moving on to our next tank, we have Ramatra. Ramatra is a decent A tier tank. If we ignore that poke isn't what's being played, Ram is pretty good. His little buff that he got is honestly more, it just makes him more fluid and consistent, and it's really nice to have. That takes us to Reinhardt. Same thing with Reinhardt. Decent tank, kind of gets outpaced by Ram sometimes, struggles against Orisa. However, you just have to be very careful on Reinhardt. Like, actually no, I will go to say Ryan is a specialist pick. If you know what you're doing on Ryan, we know the 𝐒𝐻𝐂𝐈𝐍𝐊𝐒, we know the different Reinhardt players that are out there that can make him work. You just have to be a specialist on Reinhardt now. Like, and you have to be really careful and really, really quick. You have to do your best to command the battlefield before it commands you into swapping to Orisa. So Reinhardt, awkward situation, not that bad, really good in low elo, but the second you hit diamond or mid diamond, Reinhardt begins to feel the power of better tanks outpacing him, right? Our next tank is Zarya. Zarya is S tier, still really good. One of the few answers to Orisa, really good in poke, has flexibility in other comps as well. So pretty solid pick. Grav is still a decent ult, and she has really good damage. Again, she can cleanse effects and things like that. Zarya is pretty solid. I don't think I need to explain too much about the tanks. Roadhog, garbage. I really don't have to explain this. Like, I ran into some people today that were locking Hog as if like, oh, like clearly they nerfed Orisa, so I can now play Hog again. And these people, they just get farmed. Until Hog's rework comes through, Hog is by far the worst tank in the game. Right next to, and this is the next tank we're going to talk about, is Wrecking Ball. For some strange reason, he's not here unless I've missed him, but I haven't, so whatever. Ah, yeah, here he is. So Wrecking Ball, okay, so again, B tier is where we're keeping the specialist picks, but Wrecking Ball gets hard countered or soft countered by a lot of different things. The playstyle he had was just really good for 6v6, and again, 𝐒𝐿 did an amazing fall of ball video. So if you really want to understand why Wrecking Ball is in a weird spot, then definitely check out that video. But I would go as far as to say, with Sombra and Mei kind of back, and Mei having an instant 40% slow, Sombra with hack and virus, and I have been playing Sombra and Mei here and there, I would actually go to say that Ball took a big hit this season, and the buffs that he got is not enough. Like, unfortunately, unless we go back to 6v6, Wrecking Ball might need to see a rework unless Dive comes back. Like, this is one of those things where, yeah, just he sucks, and the tank passive makes things worse for him too. So again, like, I don't need to explain too much about why he sucks. Sombra, Mei, that's it. Bastion, Torbjorn, like, so much high damage pressure against this character who, the second he engages, he's already lost more than half his HP. So it's very hard because he's like a disruption tank similar to Doomfist. The thing about Doomfist is that Doomfist can successfully disrupt people because of Empowered Punch. Wrecking Ball doesn't really have that benefit. And it's really in depth, but just take my word for it. Ball and Hog are just really bad right now. Again, Ball can work, but very minimalistic situations. I do think he could be the C tier tank, but I don't know. Like, the second they see you on Ball, it's just they insta swap to Mei and Sombra. So I'll put Ball in C. Not that bad, not that good. Just if you can make him work, try. Otherwise, pick anything above C tier. And try that instead and save yourself a world of pain and headaches. Winston, A tier, without doubt. I think Winston's actually really, really good. He's complementing a lot of the DPS picks. He can play around the poke comps and things like that. Now, of course, if there's an overwhelming amount of counters for Winston, then for sure swap off. Don't try to risk, like, hardcore feeding into this Sombra Mei Reaper that we're seeing rise in this season. Bastion's still good, Torb is still good. But again, if you have a dive comp, if you can try to make it work, Winston can work really well. Just be really good at controlling the high grounds of the maps and playing slow. Like, the new playstyle of Winston is that you just have to play slow and be careful. Don't overcommit, and also don't undercommit, because there are some Winston that are just too scared to go in, and they're Genji, Tracers, Echoes, Pharahs just sitting there like, go, make space and we'll come too. So yeah, solid A tier pick. Winston and Ram, solid A tier picks. That brings us to D.Va. D.Va is solid A tier pick, although I am considering that might be a specialist pick, but not that bad, not that good, really good when you, like, if we just want to ignore Orisa and Zarya, pretty good, pretty solid. Like, A and B are pretty solid. They're not overpowered. It requires you to be decent at them to get value. But like when the S tier tanks are there, these everybody below them can struggle because while Zarya might be like somebody that struggles against a good Diva or good Winston, Orisa for sure can plow through all of that. So that's something to keep in mind. Diva pretty decent and mostly is picked to mark 5 mercy comps, or if you just want to try the really bizarre awkward playstyle of farming Orisa for free bombs, and also just using her as a counter pick to Winston. Moving on from Diva, I do believe that concludes the tank side of things. We have Junker Queen. Junker Queen is another character which is, she's not bad, she's not good. In the hands of a specialist, she can work. I'm going to put her above Reinhardt. Oh, actually, wait, let me think about this. Because with everything that's in the game, Queen is a little bit awkward. Like, okay, she's hand in hand with Reinhardt. Like, she gets hard countered, like really bad against Zarya, because again, Zarya can remove the bleed effects, and she gets really bullied by what's her name, Kiriko. So I might just put that below Ryan, because Ryan can deal with those problems a little bit better than Jungle Queen. So again, B tier is the specialist picks. If you're good at them, you can make them work. It can work against the A and B tier tank lineup, but when you're up against S, you're playing Overwatch on the hardest difficulty. And again, always remember Mei Sombra is the thing. Mei Sombra can work really well. Mei Sombra, Reaper, Bastion, Torp can work really well with Junker Queen, kind of. Reinhardt can make them work really well. But again, when you think about Orisa Zarya, it's just, man, I spent 10 hours playing Orisa Zarya comps. It's just really tiring now. I was really hoping for a seasonal shift. Anyways, Sigma, solid, a map-dependent character. Just A. I would put him at A. He's not, like, Sigma is honestly by far the most balanced tank in Overwatch 2. He can take care of himself, he can take care of others, he can do good poke damage, he can, like, control a brawl tank, just kind of push them away so he can maintain his space. He doesn't have a insanely broken ulti. He's by far the most balanced tank. And, I'm going to put him in A tier simply because if you play him on the sniper maps, he's still a pretty solid pick. So you can, mark a Widow or Hanzo and keep them at bay. But again, it's just like, I've begun to notice a lot of Sigma players just kind of give up on doing that and go straight to Orisa or Zarya, or sometimes, again, situation dependent, go to Doomfist to mark these snipers instead. So even then, against the rest of the tank matchup, if you know how to play Sigma, you know how to position well against the A and B tier tanks, you can make him work. Granted that it'll be a little bit of an awkward situation, but you can make it work. I will put him at the top of B tier, right? You can make him work, but Sigma's downside is speed. He doesn't have mobility, and he doesn't, and like his shots, like when he does his little poke damage, his little like ball shots, that sounds weird. Like, it's so easy to out heal them in the time that the next shots connect that confirming a kill with him is just, again, like high healing screws him over, right? And then the immortality ability screw over is also B tier situational pick, can work in the hands of a good specialist that knows what he's doing, and he's map dependent, so he'll be in the B tier, right? With that said, I think that is it for our tanks, and now we come down to the juice, which is the damage dealers. And oh boy, not much has changed. I think everybody is expecting Bastion and Torben S, and I'm not going to lie, you are correct, sir and madam, and whatever you identify as, because Bastion and Torbjorn are still very strong. They are a little bit less tanky, for sure. They're easier to pressure, contest, sometimes score an elimination on, but what they enable in the form of extremely fast and high burst damage has not been dealt with, okay? And man, I just showed this one tank earlier today on Bastion, and then, like, I remember I got like a 3k with Torbjorn at a certain point where, like, we just pressed E and just spammed down a choke on Eichenwald, and they just got deleted, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of silly. Like, it's still really strong. Like, what is meant to be strong on these two characters has not been addressed, and I don't know. Like, what they nerfed was okay. It wasn't enough though. S tier picks, really solid. Just be smart on how to play them. Bastion, you only want to go into turret form as a team fight is starting, so you can slow down the enemy tank. And pretty much the same thing with Torbjorn. You can use your overload to pressure a choke just before they push, because you can use it to either get a cheeky pick at the backline. However, from what I've experienced and from what I've seen playing tank and DPS and support, The real value really comes in is when you use your E to help your tank burst down the other tank, and it's just crazy. And even his right click, I feel like a lot of people forget his shotgun that he uses. It has its spread reduced from a while ago, unless I'm mistaken. If I am, please correct me in the comments. I'm a human being. I make mistakes. It is what it is. So, that's something I want to kind of like talk about is, when he uses that shotgun, man, it hurts like a brick wall. He just feels like a better Reaper, right? Okay, Junkrat. Oh boy, here we go. So C tier, very, very map dependent. Even specialists are struggling to make him work. Healing is really high. Better spam options are there for that high burst damage. He gets outclassed by both of them. Riptide is a joke of an ultimate. The second you use it, it gets sneezed on and it's deleted. Of course, I'm over exaggerating, but to anybody that plays Junkrat in Diamond Plus, where people have decent aim and these things, they know what I'm talking about. He's just in an awkward spot. And I felt like the spot he had previously, where you did pick him to do this like decently high burst damage, with the grenades and everything, Bastion and Torb just cover that much better, so why play Junkrat? You can make it work, but like on the few maps that you can make Junkrat work, Torb and Master are just better options anyway. Mei. Now Mei with a Brawl or Rush comp can work very well. She also has decent pokes, so the flexibility of playing with Orisa comps or any variations of Bastion and Torb, she's not that bad. I feel like people are sleeping on Mei, but I will put her again in the B tier of a specialist can make her work. Actually, no, you know what? Yeah, actually, no, she'll be in B tier. Oh man, I actually don't know. Like, I played about like 7 games of Mei because my mate was like, bro, I want to lock in Ryan Ram. I'm tired of Ursa. Let's make it work. And we did make it work. But there are times where you just feel like it's so situational, it's so comp dependent. But honestly, I would say Mei's not that bad. I think she's in a pretty good spot. I'm going to throw her in A. One thing that's different from her season 1 iteration is before she would have a ramp up of her slow from 30% to 50%. Now when she uses her with her left click, the slow is an immediate 40%. So trust me, you feel it. When you play tank, you feel that thing, and it's not the most fun thing in the world. So A tier, pretty solid pick in this season. Soldier 76, B tier. Okay, so I'm gonna try and speed run this. Video is probably getting really long now. Soldier, B tier, Reaper, outclassed by these two up here. Like Reaper's niche was being the tank buster, and these two just do it much better than him. It's very awkward for Reaper nowadays. His ult is again very easily countered by support players pressing a button on their screen, and it's really terrible spot Reaper's in. If anything, if we are going to go down the power creep route, which I disagree with, Reaper is one of the few characters that needs a buff. Genji is one of those characters where I actually don't think he's that bad. In this season, he's pretty decent, but again, in the hands, I would put him in B tier. He's B tier. Like there's some comps where you just can't do anything, and playing some variation of the S and A tier characters is just better. But in the hands of a specialist, it can work. Same thing with Soldier. I feel like the B tier will be our specialist. Like if you're a specialist on these characters, if you know what you're doing and you can really push these characters to the limits, you can make them work. Okay, so that's what the B tier is throughout this video. Cassidy, oh boy, I'm not going to lie. Cass is really bad, and I feel really bad. I'm not a huge hit scan advocate, but there's like parts of me where I'm like, man, like why is Cassidy worse at his job of being a poke damage dealer than Iliari? And okay, here's a blazing hot take. I think the reason Cass lost his ability to have range with his poke damage is so Iliari could use her playstyle of just being that Sweato sniper that takes an off angle, deletes everybody. Because I feel like one of the characters that could have punished her in the range that she wants to play from is Cassidy, and then I'm fairly certain the development team understood this, balance team understood this in their playtest, and they were like, okay, we will tone down Cass a little bit, so Iliari can kind of shine. Just give him his range back. These weird buffs that they keep trying to make him tanky, it's not the problem. Like he's a damage dealer and he's struggling to do damage. Let's kind of get this out of the way. And again, high healing, the slower pace of the game, Cass just feels awkward. It's like, why would you play him when Torb and Bastion, again, better upgrades to what Cassidy can bring, right? His grenade is inconsistent, ult is garbage somewhat. pretty much is mostly used for zoning people out. Sometimes you get lucky, but just not good enough in the current poke meta of Ursa, Zarya, 𝐒𝐲𝐈𝐻 that everything's being built around. Symmetra is actually really good. I'm actually going to go far to say again, if you're a Symmetra specialist, you know how to play Symmetra, you know how to abuse map terrain and how to control maps on King of the Hill. Man, I've been sleeping on the Symmetra. I believe in the vision. Sim is actually not that bad. There's a part of me that wants to put her in A tier, but again, there are some maps and situations where Bastion and Torb, Mei, and the tanks can just control Sim a little bit too well. She's still extremely like vulnerable when she's out there on the floor. She doesn't have the tankiness that Torb and Mei and Bastion have, and that kind of holds her back a little bit. So she's in the B tier, right? We have Ashe again, same situation as B. With a Mercy Pocket, you can do well. Otherwise, she's decent. The poke damage is very easily, like, you have to be really, really strong on the Ashe pick. Why do that when you can lock Bastion or Torb? It's just, Torb is just a better Ashe right now, and I'm not a fan of it. It's just really cheesy, and that's not even accounting for the turn. Ashe is not bad. Honestly, I would say Ashe is a decent A tier pick. If you can make her work, you got that Mercy Pocket, you're following up on Discords, you're following up on the shots that your supports are doing. I can't believe I'm saying this. Ashe is not that bad. I would say she's a good A tier pick. Sojourn, really, really good A tier pick. Like, she's almost at her season 1 full powered state. People sleep on her a lot. When a good Sojourn player kind of walks in, she can control the lobby. But again, Sojourn's downtime is really punishable when she doesn't have her charged up shots and everything. So again, Bastion just kind of forces her away. Torb forces her away. But overall, Sojourn's pretty solid. Really, really good stuff. This season, I am seeing some Sojourn players coming back, and it's really nice to see. Tracer, oh my goodness. With the deployment creep, with the turret creep, and I'm going to do a video on this in the future. I already have all the clips and everything. Tracer's in a really bad spot. Now, picture this, right? You're a flanker. Tracer's job is to never take frontline battles. She wants to get into the back and pressure the supports first and foremost, force out cooldowns, etc., all that type of stuff. Now you're in the back line, okay, and let's say the enemy team is running an optimal Ursa comp. So you cannot contest Ursa because, again, Ursa. Torbjorn has a turn that's passively pressuring you. If you try to do anything to the backline, Iliari Pylon is there to negate it. If you try to give either turret an attention, they just like okay, you're shooting the healing turret. Well, now the turret that does damage is like pressuring you. If you try to shoot that turret, well, Torb gets identified that, okay, Tracer's nearby, can give you attention, and usually where the turret is nowadays is being played close to the backline. So the other, like the supports, the high damaging supports can now look at you, and Tracer has it really rough. Away from the Ursa comps, if we just ignore the Ursa comps, Tracer can work in the hands of a specialist, but I will say she's on the verge of C tier and just at the end point of B tier. She's really not that good, and I said this before and I'll say it again. When Genji and Tracer start to go into bad spots, especially Tracer, the game is not doing well. Widowmaker, again, in the hands of the right person, Widow can be very oppressive, and she's not that bad. She works really well on the maps that she's good on, and when the time comes, you just swap it over to Ashe, so she's side by side on Ashe. Not that bad. Hanzo, B tier. I would put him a little bit behind Genji, honestly. His like, again, problem with Hanzo is his power in the poke damage is with his storm arrows. Storm arrows are really not that effective because they had a little bit of damage nerfs here and there, and he only has like 4 or 5 of them. Torbjorn has more quote-unquote storm arrows with his E than Hanzo does, and he brings more to the table, and he's much tankier, right? So while yes, Hanzo has the one-shot factor that can work out really well, Torb just outclasses that, and Hanzo can struggle against these heroes up here. Why? He can't really headshot Mei and kill her right away. Mei can poke him a lot more reliably and comfortably than he can poke her. It's maybe matchup and player dependent, but that's what I felt, both on the receiving end and the giving end. And the rest of them just outpace him. So Hanzo, again, the B tier has become our specialist list. So if you know how to play them and you can push them, but you have to push yourself to do twice or thrice as much than the heroes in ANS, you can make them work. Sombra. Okay, blazing fire hot take. The rework was okay in changing the playstyle. They succeeded in that. However, And they increase her lethality. Her ability to get kills has gotten a little bit better. However, it didn't do much. And the worst part is because of the current meta. And that's why I can't judge Sombra currently, is like this poke meta that we are in right now is really bad for Sombra, and it forces her to play a little bit slower. However, in the moments that I did get to play her, and I have a guide coming up on her very, very soon, I just need a little bit more footage, she can feel very strong. She doesn't necessarily feel oppressive, I will say that. And you yourself on Sombra will feel that, okay, this isn't working, I need to swap. So I will put her just above Genji. Yeah, just above Genji. The utility with hack is still really, really good. And you can do things on your own. You do have to understand the playstyle shift. I'm running into a lot of Sombra players that are making this mistake of thinking Translocator works the same way it used to, but they get a harsh reality check and it doesn't, and they get punished a lot. But the way I've been playing Sombra, like as if she's a Mei with a different kit, with the tank by my side, it's working pretty well. Again, B tier, not that bad, not that good, works with the right help. Let's just say that, okay? And Sombra Specialist will make it work. Like for sure, anybody that's good in Sombra is going to make it work. But I would say don't overcommit to it. Again, there's still too much healing and all these abilities in the game that interact with Sombra's kit in a way that negates her. So yeah, unfortunately that is it. Echo. Okay, Echo is an S tier pick. By far not, like, Echo is slept upon every season. We've been in this in Overwatch 2 5v5 for 7 seasons now, and people sleep like crazy on Echo's potential. She can hard carry games. She can turn a lot of things around. She's really, really good into Bastion and Torbjorn as well, if you know what you're doing. There's very, very few situations where her big hitbox can backfire on her in the way Bastion and Torb interact with her. But maybe I will put her above Torb, because like with Torb becoming less tanky, Echo is really good against him. And the Bastion and Torb matchup can kind of be alluded to a little bit of a skill matchup. But if the Bastion has supports and you don't have a pocket Mercy, it's very heavily Bastion favored. So just that to keep in mind. But with everything else in the game, Echo's phenomenal at dealing with them. So keep that in mind. Pharah, B tier. Again, situational, map dependent. If you're good on her, you can make it work. If not, go Echo. Just overall better, right? And I think that concludes the DPS. I don't know if I missed anybody. I feel like maybe I didn't. Okay. So yeah, so for our DPS, these are the 3 best DPS right now. By far, not even a question to ask. Bastion, Echo, and Torb are at the top. Okay. And underneath them, Sojourn, Mei, Ashe, and Widowmaker. Again, map and comp dependent, but from a general perspective, they can work if you know what you're doing. B tier is a little bit more, if you've really trained and practiced these characters, you can do fine. C tier, these are the characters that in my personal opinion, they actually need a lot of help. For Cassidy, give him his range. For Reaper, reduce the spread or increase his damage by 1 pellet. I think we have enough high healing in the game. If we're not going to nerf healing, increase Reaper's damage. And Junkrat, I don't know, man, like, I actually don't know. Like, if you tone down Torb and Bastion, then Junkrat fills both their niches to a certain extent. So I don't know. I don't want to give Junkrat his one-shot combo back, because again, power creep is not the answer. Healing reduction or like these really overpowered support abilities getting nerfed is the solution. But if Blizzard doesn't do that, then I wouldn't be surprised if they buff Junkrat's mind damage or something, you know, if they make him shoot faster grenades, which again would be scary. But that's going to be it for this video. That's been the tier list. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.